Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us for the fourth and final meeting of Scrutiny Panel number 2, Economy and Sustainability for the 2025-26 year. Very excited to start this meeting, the final one. First of all, we have had apologies from Councillor Sidhu, which we have noted. I do not believe that we have any other apologies. Councillor Crawford is joining online, so is present. So then item 2, urgent matters. We don't have any urgent matters. I don't believe we have any matters to be considered in private. Are there any declarations of interest from any councillors present? Thank you. There's no declarations of interest. To approve the minutes of the meeting of the 18th of November. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Those minutes have been agreed. Item number 6, panel work programme operations. What draft do we need to approve, given that it's for the next panel to consider any future operations?
So it should be the current cycle.
Okay. Are we happy with the that we've agreed all the stuff that we've already done? Fantastic. And so then we move on to item 7, the reports. First of all, I would like to welcome some pupils from Twyford Academy who have come to join and witness the operation of our scrutiny panel this evening. Thank you very much. I hope it is of scintillating interest. Thank you very much.
Chair, with apologies. Sorry, I didn't know they were there, but I need to declare that I'm a former pupil of Twyford Church of England High School, and that they've already heard from myself and Councillor Gannon. I don't know about Councillor Gannon, but we didn't try to indoctrinate them. Apologies to my colleagues that I can't be there in person, but I do need to declare that I've been to the school. And firstly 20 years ago and then twice this week. Thank you.
Chair, I will also declare that I have invited pupils to attend this meeting as well.
I'm not sure it's a declaration matter, but thank you very much for your candor, and I hope it's a success for them. Thank you for inviting them. I'd like to also thank officers for their time this evening and coming to share their reports and answering our questions, as well as Councillor Brett and Councillor Mamro, who are also going to face some questions. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to hand over now. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. I'm Adam Toll. I'm Head of New Homes in the Housing Development Team at Ealing Council. I will start by giving apologies for another absence, Emma Osmondson, who's our Assistant Director for Housing Regeneration, was hoping to be here, but she's had to take some unexpected time off for family reasons. So you're left with myself and Yemi, who's at least with you in person. Unfortunately, at short notice, covering for Emma. I'm afraid I can't be with you tonight. So we're here to talk about the new London Social and Affordable Homes programme, which is the funding mechanism with which we'll hopefully help make affordable housing delivery in the borough viable. The Affordable Housing Investment Plan, which is the carefully considered pipeline of available projects, which will hopefully form the bid to the GLA, and also the new refreshed Ealing Development Guide, which Yemi is going to talk to you about later, which is a sort of refresh of a 2021 document, essentially to set our expectations and standards for high quality new homes and places under the new programme. So we've shared a report and drafts of both of those documents, and we have a short presentation to take you through and then welcome any questions. Firstly, a quick recap. It's worth noting that Ealing has a very good track record in both securing and spending Affordable Homes Programme grant and in building affordable homes directly and with partners. The Affordable Homes Programme is the main way government funds new affordable housing across the country. In London, that funding comes through the GLA, and councils like Ealing bid into it. And over the last two programmes, covering roughly the period from 2016 to 2026, Ealing's performed very well and is frequently amongst the top few boroughs in London in terms of both starts on site and completions. And you can see, despite the unprecedentedly difficult period we've had recently, we both started and completed the second highest number of affordable homes in London over the last year. And we've done this generally through a mix of council-led schemes, work with housing associations and through partnerships. The reason I'm saying this is because that track record matters, and because the new programme is much more competitive, and past delivery is one of the strongest signals we can give that Ealing is a reliable partner. Turning to the new programme, the London Social Affordable Homes Programme, or LSARP as GLA colleagues are calling it. I can't quite bring myself to adopt that yet, but this is a 10-year programme, unlike the previous 4-year programmes running from this year to 2036. And that's a significant change from previous rounds, and it's a good thing. It gives more certainty over a longer period and allows proper planning rather than short-term bidding. London has up to 11.7 billion, which is around 30% of the national total. That phrase "up to" is crucial, and the GLA are very keen for boroughs to be ambitious in what they bid for, in order to demonstrate to government and department that they have a kind of viable pipeline that will encourage them to unlock the remainder of that money. And a few other key points that are really important for the panel to be aware of. At least 60% of homes across the programme must be social rent. There's continued support for shared ownership as well, also intermediate rent and London living rent. And there's a new key worker rent, which is something that our policy team are busy working on at the moment. And some of you will be aware of that that key worker policy that is in draft form at the moment. The GLA is very clear that they want early wins, so schemes that can start in the first 5 years of the programme. We're expecting grant rates to be lower than before, but it's fair to say I think that's coming more from central government. The GLA is quite pragmatic about what it still takes to deliver in London in the current market. So this is a tougher environment financially, but also one where councils that are well prepared are going to do best. And I think certainly our work on the AHIP, on the Affordable Homes Investment Plan, stands us in good stead. This slide is really about scale and honesty. Ealing has a very high housing need, and our London plan target is challenging, even in a strong market. The Affordable Homes Programme on its own will not meet our overall housing need. We have a current London plan housing target of just over 2,000 homes per year, and this is expected to significantly increase to around 3,500 per year. So assuming only 40% of those are affordable, that's about 1,300 affordable homes per year, which is clearly a lot more than the 180 shown here. So it's one tool, it's not the whole answer. What it can do is help us deliver a meaningful, steady pipeline of genuinely affordable homes and help the council play its part in delivering against those targets. And that's why we're focused not just on bidding, but on having a credible long-term programme that stacks up financially and operationally. Which brings me to what we've been doing to prepare the Affordable Homes Investment Plan, or AHIP. The AHIP is a 15-year plan looking out to 2040, and its purpose is quite simple, and that's to work out what we can realistically deliver on council land within appropriate financial constraints and in a way that kind of actually meets that need. And the key headlines are we've got around potential for just short of 3,500 homes that can be delivered on council sites over that 15-year period. Just under 2,000 of those can be genuinely affordable, And in the first 5 years, there's potential for around 800 affordable homes, excluding the big regeneration schemes, the likes of High Lane, Havelock, Golf Links and Copley. And what's really important is how we got here. This wasn't a desktop exercise. Each site, as you can see from the report, tested for planning risk, cost and deliverability, delivery route, the impact on the housing revenue account. So the conclusion is not do everything at once. It's a prioritised phased programme over that period, with some sites ready sooner and others kind of held back till conditions improve. So how does this translate into the actual bids to the GLA? Well, our approach is deliberately split in two. First, we're putting forward a set of what the GLA term named projects. These are real sites with real capacity and a realistic chance of starting in the first 5 years, and that's what the GLA wants to see first. That's where we're putting most of our work currently. And alongside that, we'll submit what's called an indicative allocation. And these are more strategic or complex sites. The sites aren't named specifically in that indicative allocation, but we'll have to evidence to the GLA the assumptions behind it, what the sites are, and what makes up that indicative allocation. And that will include estates that I've previously mentioned, likely to be delivered in partnership, and generally things that may come forward later in the 10-year period that are a bit less clear at this stage, but that we'll be working on from day one. In fact, already are working on. And what this does is give us flexibility. If viability shifts or grant rules change or priorities evolve, we're not locked into the wrong schemes. And we're very deliberately not putting all our eggs in one basket. So the programme uses a balanced mix of direct council delivery, which is where the emphasis has been historically, but now introduces a lot more partnerships with developers and RPs, potential for private development agreements and selective disposals. And that matters because different sites suit different approaches, work better financially under certain circumstances. And because the market is uncertain, construction costs, interest rates, grant levels all move, a diverse approach makes the programme more resilient and protects the council better financially. So this is a snapshot of a list of projects that make up the core programme that are come out of the Affordable Homes Investment Plan. What I'd like to stress here is that these aren't theoretical. They've all been spatially tested, costed, prioritised. Some are small infill sites that only deliver a few homes, some are larger developments, and some link to much wider regeneration ambitions. And finally, location. What you can see here is a good spread across the borough, and this is important not just for fairness, but for access to schools and services and transport. The affordable housing that we're delivering through this shouldn't be concentrated in one part of Ealing, so each of the 7 towns benefits. This programme helps kind of ensure that those new homes are delivered in a balanced way and support existing communities. So to sum up, we're still in a tough financial environment, but we're better prepared, we're well prepared, we have a credible plan, and hopefully a realistic and resilient pipeline, and a strong delivery track record that should put us in good stead with the GLA when it comes to bidding this side of April. Do you want to take questions, Chair, on this now, or should we go straight into the development guide?
I think we discussed that we'd run through both presentations and then move on to questions across both.
Okay, I'll stay in the driving seat then, Yemi, but hand over to you.
Thank you. So next, I'm going to be outlining the purpose, context and importance of the refreshed development guide. The guide sets the standard for how Ealing Council plans, designs and delivers new housing on council-led or council-owned land. The purpose of the guide is to provide a clear but proportionate commissioning framework for new housing. It defines the council's expectations around quality, sustainability, affordability and long-term value. It replaces the 2021 Broadway Living Development Guide and reflects major changes that has happened since then. So the rising costs of construction, maintenance costs, tighter regulatory requirements, the climate emergency, and growing housing need. Ultimately, it helps the council act as a consistent and responsible client and improves outcomes across our housing programme. The strategic kind of context to the guide is that it translates the existing strategies and puts them into practical delivery requirements. So it supports the Ealing's Council Plan, the housing strategy, climate ecological emergency strategy, and the emerging local plan. It also aligns with best practice guides across London, so the Mayor's Good Growth by Design agenda, and the purpose is really to emphasise quality, design quality, environmental performance and social value. Next slide, please, Adam. So why is this guide necessary? Well, there is the ever-present sustained housing pressure, demand far outstripping supply, the rising use of temporary accommodation, our existing housing stock, which is ageing, higher maintenance costs, poor energy performance. Of course, there's climate change and energy costs, which are an increased risk. So we really are conscious that our homes must avoid fuel poverty and must be resilient to overheating, cold, the energy grid constraints and extreme weather. We also have the regulatory changes such as Awaab's Law and the Building Safety Act that we're all kind of grappling with. And that places, a lot of those places new responsibility on the council. So, and we really do believe that those requirements must be addressed through design and construction, not by fixing problems later, as inevitably that comes at greater cost to the council. So in terms of what the guide covers, there will be that's going to be built around 4 key themes. So one, sustainable homes and neighbourhoods, so energy efficiency, carbon reduction, climate resilience, water management, urban greening and biodiversity. The next heading is healthy places to live, so daylight and air quality, overheating and acoustic comfort, safe streets and access to green space. Third, homes for everyone, affordability, inclusivity and accessibility, sustainability for diverse households and across different life stages. And finally, design and construction quality. So good architecture, robust build quality, clear accountability from design all the way through to handover. The guide is designed to be accessible and supported by a checklist for consistency. Next slide, please, Adam. So the business case for adoption is that this is not just an environmental or design initiative, it really also is a financial necessity. Evidence from other schemes show that although you might have small increases in upfront costs, you have major whole life cost savings, and the benefits include lower maintenance and repair costs down the line, reduced defects and lower energy consumption and better performance. So we're also aware that poor quality homes create ongoing financial burdens for the council, such as higher maintenance costs and the management costs and indirect costs tied to health and fuel poverty. The wider development industry is also shifting. So major developers like Barratt are now committed to delivering passive house standards across homes at scale. And on a site visit to Acton this afternoon, we were also discussing with Vistry where their stance is on passive house. So the guide really positions Ealing, we feel, in line with market direction and future regeneration. In terms of how the guide is going to be used, the intention is that it applies to all council-led housing development, whether that's direct delivery, joint ventures, partnerships or third-party development on council land. And it will be embedded into existing governance processes through feasibility, procurement, gateway approvals, design review and handover. The intention is that it creates a shared reference point across the housing team, but also planning, climate action, property and finance. and helps ensure that there are consistent expectations and clear engagement with contractors and our delivery partners. So to wrap up, the Refresh Guide we really see as a practical and essential tool that will help us deliver better quality homes, reduce long-term financial and regulatory risk, respond to the climate emergency, and act as a clear, credible, consistent client. The guide ensures that new council-led homes are affordable to live in, resilient, and will deliver lasting value for the residents of the borough. And that is the end of the presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. If you just want to, brilliant. Thank you very much. That was very interesting. And along with the documents that were prepared in advance of the meeting, very grateful for the work that has very clearly gone into those. We'll now open the floor to questions from our colleagues. I think probably I'm going to ask the first question, and that's about the Affordable Homes Investment Plan. That's quite a long-term program. I think there's, you said, 15-year program. How does the council ensure that that remains aligned to the council housing strategy, which is only set, I think, for a 5-year period, and therefore there'll be 3 of them, I think, during that 15-year period? Please.
Thank you. Well, the housing strategy sets the direction, and the Affordable Homes Investment Plan, I guess, is how we turn that direction into something deliverable. And, yes, the housing strategy most recently adopted is 2025 to 2030. It is our overarching framework, and it sets out what we're trying to achieve, or what we need to achieve. A lot of that is based on the need data that comes out of our local housing need assessment, and that is not likely to significantly change and needs to be refreshed at a kind of greater rate. As I discussed, I think the flexibility that's built into both the indicative allocation and also the Affordable Homes Investment Plan allows us to respond and adapt as that need changes and as priorities in the housing strategy change.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Galland?
Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Thanks very much for. I'll stick to the Affordable Homes Investment Plan for the moment, then come to the development guide later. There's too much in one go. Could you just talk to the 4 delivery routes, how the council is going to manage the allocations to sites and the risk exposure across those models? That would be very helpful, just to sort of elucidate that a little bit. You mentioned it, but if you could just sort of open that up a little bit. And could you also tell me about key workers, because it's a kind of, it's not a new concept, obviously, but it's something that I know there's one development in my ward which is 4 key workers. The council is going to start building for key workers, how they'll be defined, whether that's flexible or whether that's something that can move, or whether you've got a very fixed idea of what a key worker is at the moment.
Thank you. So delivery routes first. The delivery routes are very much about matching the right tool to the right site and managing risk sensibly. So sites were allocated delivery routes using a structured assessment that looked at financial impact and value for money, deliverability and planning risk, exposure to construction and sales risk, market appetite, and the type and scale of the site. Direct delivery is generally used for smaller, more straightforward schemes where the council has greater control and lower exposure, and really responds to the appetite for risk and the ability for the HRA and the general fund to fund those schemes. For larger or more complex sites, development agreements and partnerships are used to share or transfer the risk, in short, and particularly around construction costs and market sales. So, well, I mentioned actually in the presentation potentially about site disposals as well, and we're also considering that where delivery risk is high, or where a land receipt can be recycled into other affordable housing schemes that offer better value or certainty. So we're very much kind of targeting a much more balanced programme that takes better advantage of those those other routes. So risk is managed across the programme as a whole, not site by site in isolation, and it helps us to kind of phase delivery, maximise grant and external funding as well, which is also a crucial part of those partnerships. But nonetheless, all of those are tested against kind of HRA performance and borrowing limits.
Councillor Manro?
Sorry,
Well, I think Councillor Manro wants to.
I see.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I thought I'd just give you an example of where, by doing this different sort of way of bringing development forward, the Gurnell site's coming to Cabinet. I think it's a public document now, so you could see that we are disposing of that site so that we can take a land receipt to put towards the Gurnell Leisure Centre build. But we've managed to secure a good partner that will deliver, I think, 347, I may be wrong, it's about 340 odd homes, which will be entirely 100% affordable, 78% of them being social rent and the other 22% being London living rent. So you can see where we can, we seek to deliver the most efficient level of affordable housing, and that is a scheme that will follow the development guide, will follow all the things that you've sort of seen come through, but it will deliver 100% affordable housing for our borough. So that's an exemplary scheme that we hope, with our partnership with developers and other partners, we can deliver, and also maybe take a land receipt when we're required to take one.
Just to, sorry, just add to that point, I hadn't, we haven't introduced Jamie, who is the developer that Councillor Monroe just mentioned. So in case you had any specific questions about that scheme, Jamie's joined us tonight.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Councillor Gallant, I know you wanted to follow up on something that was said.
Just if you could just mention about key workers.
Yes, you asked about key worker living rent as well. So it's a new intermediate rent tenure that the Mayor, through the Social and Affordable Homes Programme, has introduced and released a guidance note on it only last week, I think it was, or the week before last anyway. The purpose is that it sort of targets households who are stuck in the middle, so unlikely to secure social rent tenancies but struggle with private rents, and that tends to especially kind of focus on key workers such as nurses, teachers, bus drivers. Rents are going to be income linked and set sort of 40% of average net household income, the detail of which is still being worked through by the GLA, and how that is included in the bidding process is still to be decided. In terms of Ealing's own response and aim strategy, it's very much still being worked through exactly how we define key workers. There is the sort of longer list that that I think the GLA are proposing, which is essentially almost everybody who was defined as a key worker during COVID. But I think sort of the working assumption at the moment is that will be a bit more focused.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. My internet's cutting out a little bit, and I hope you can still hear me. I'll resist the temptation to make a plea on what key workers should be, and ask instead about the housing revenue account, which Adam and Yemi and colleagues have referred to already. The development pipeline indicated in that slide pack, which is very informative, thank you. Obviously, the hope is that we're in a much more sustainable pattern for HRO, which I know Councillor Taylor, my colleague, was very focused on in the early years of the administration. How have we worked to make sure to ensure that viability, sustainability is long term in accordance with the 15-year length of these proposals, and obviously what the modelling dictates, and with specific reference, of course, to the fact that there will be a significant number of new affordable homes, I hope, in what will become, I think they're still proposing to call it Old Oak West, which is the, and you know, it's my last meeting because I'm such a troublemaker. But, you know, that's not specifically within Ealing Council's purview, but it will be within the GLA and the OPDCs, and my constituents, many of whom are, I believe, behind you this evening. Those are the people who will need those homes and currently can't get them, as we all know, as councillors. Provision of housing is the thing that's most prevalent at our surgeries and in our inbox, probably behind crime and safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. I mean, we all understand, I think, that the HRA is under a lot of strain. So protecting the long-term sustainability of the HRA has been a central consideration throughout, and the Affordable Homes Investment Plan and the LSAP bid is explicitly designed as a mixed portfolio, as I say. So by combining direct delivery, partnerships, selective disposals over 10 to 15 years, we avoid putting excessive pressure on the HRA at any one point in time. You know, Savills Affordable Housing Consultancy have been working with council officers to develop the Housing Revenue Account business plan for the forthcoming financial year, and the financial model has been developed in close collaboration between all parts of housing, regeneration, housing development, finance services, following a series of really quite kind of intensive and at sometimes long workshops. And we've developed a plan for approval, which is termed the baseline plan, but also run a series of scenarios and sensitivities known as stress tests, which show how resilient the plan is to changes in assumptions, new projects coming in, increased development costs and that kind of thing. So all the schemes that we're proposing have been tested against financial hurdles and will continue to be tested against the HRA business plan as they move through our governance gateways. And you know, the overriding message from me is that, you know, if those financial hurdles are met, then schemes should all have a materially positive impact on the business plan overall, and their delivery on time and to expected budgets would be a key feature of that plan going forward. So it should strengthen it over the period of the plan.
Councillor Brett?
Yeah, I mean, it's just to kind of reiterate that point in terms of the HRA business plan. You know, that is coming to Cabinet very soon, and it's taken into consideration in terms of the Savills report, but also the regulator for social housing inspection feedback as well, as other financial kind of you know, considerations. You know, as Adam has just said, all of the teams have been working really, really closely together in order to make sure that the plans in terms of the long-term housing strategy and the HRA complement each other and don't put unnecessary pressure on the HRA. And the HRA business plan also outlines how we can then start putting some funds back into the HRA so that it becomes more resilient. And I think, as Adam also pointed out, the new properties that are coming into the pipeline for HRA will actually bolster it rather than put pressure on it. But they have to come in at a kind of, you know, a more targeted approach rather than all at once, in order to not overload the HRA. Thanks.
Councillor Manray, do you have something more to add to that?
Yeah, sorry, as Councillor Brett has said, that's been a #1 priority for us. So us purchasing the 290 homes from Berkeley and Countryside, those schemes will be cash flow positive to the HRA, and so will not be a drag. And we have got, I suppose it's a problem that could be an issue, but it's a good problem to have. I think the coming year we will have over 700 properties moving into the HRA. Now that is one of the largest numbers the HRA would ever accept. Normally it's about 100 or 200, but because we've managed to get lots of schemes through, the HRA will get an inflow, about 10% of our housing waiting list will come in the next year. 700 odd homes will be coming into the HRA. So there is a bit of a timing issue, as Councillor Brett has said. We need to make sure, we have the facilities to actually manage those properties, get them ready for let, get the tenants set up and do all that. But it is a good news story that we would get 10% of our housing waiting list coming in a year, 700 odd homes. And I don't think there's many boroughs in London could say that. So it's good news in a way, but we have to manage the pressure on the HRA and make sure that they're delivered in a staggered way rather than all at once, because it would put too much pressure on the staff, etc., to handle that kind of number of homes in a short period of time.
Councillor Crawford, if this is the same line of questioning, then absolutely, please.
If you'll forgive me, I've known Councillor Manro for a long time, and I was waiting for him to come in because he said the thing. Sorry, the other Councillor Crawford has just come in my front door. She's not going to interrupt this question. Forgive me. It's illustrating that I am stuck at home in the housing market in the way that. Can we have some quiet, please? I'm trying to ask a question. Thank you. And I'll do it briefly. It is that I've known Councillor Manro a long time. Can he assure me, and I think I'm understanding him correctly, that this HRA and what Adam has said, the changes that have been implemented and the modelling, which I didn't hear an answer for on that part of the question, all of this has been stress tested, and it's much more likely, and he feels in a much better position than the HRA and the situation that we were in the early years of the Ealing Labour Council administration in 2010 to 2014, when it was really difficult. There's a bit more flexibility, there's a bit more planning, and he feels confident that it's deliverable, notwithstanding the constraints and challenges that have already been outlined by both him, Councillor Brett, and Mr. Towell.
Sorry, do you want me to come back? I mean, I think Councillor Brett...
was a question to you, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Councillor Brett, it's her daily job to make sure the HRA is sustainable and with her senior officers make sure that any scheme that comes forward is cash flow positive. So when we do the financial modelling through Adam and his team and through Emma, we make sure, so both the Countryside scheme and the Berkeley scheme are cash flow positive for the HRA. And there are some schemes that have not gone forward because we couldn't show that it was going to be cash flow positive. We're hoping that the government may help us, and we are lobbying the Treasury to help us make the HRA more sustainable. But until that happens, we make damn sure that any schemes that come forward are positive rather than negative, and we that's our #1 priority. So we could have bought 900 homes. There were schemes ready to go, but we needed to make sure that we did them in a way which didn't put pressure on the HRA. So we're still looking at certain schemes, and I think it's about 400 odd homes we're still looking at, but we won't move forward with them until we are certain those financial models work. And that's why we're hoping with the new grants regime, it will help us. So that Councillor Brett would not let a scheme come into the HRA which would be negative. So she wouldn't let me do that. So, and I wouldn't want to do that in the first place.
Forgive me, I didn't wish to cast any doubt on how prudent and responsible Councillor Brett is. I know that personally very well. So thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone for answering my questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor, is your question related to this topic, or will you, in that case, please continue, Councillor Mohan?
Thank you, Chair. What assumptions underpin the calculation for the number of affordable homes, and how sensitive are these assumptions to changes in viability, planning, or the construction market?
Councillor Manro, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know who it was addressed to. Okay, so look, we've gone through a really difficult time in the last 2 to 3 years. I think in 2024, our planning service received no major application for what we call residential C3 application. So the whole market is actually stuck at the moment, because if you can't sell private sector homes, because most schemes rely on selling homes into the private sector to balance and offset the cost of the social housing that they deliver. Many of them are not able to build at the moment. So the GLA and the government are taking some measures to bring forward the actual building of homes. So one of the measures is reducing the affordable housing ask on private from 35% to 20% for fast track, changing some of the design principles around bicycle parking, bicycle spaces, changing some of the design principles around how many homes can go around the core when they do a core, how many units can go, maybe even accepting some single aspect homes. The government is also looking at reducing sale to half if they can show that the viability would be improved by that and they can actually bring the scheme forward. So there's a number of planning changes coming forward in terms of how we can try and make the market move forward. They're all short-term measures, they're not long-term, but that's what we're trying to do to try and bring forward some schemes. And I can say this year we have received some large applications coming forward through our planning service where people feel that they can bring forward larger schemes. There's one in the Hanger Hill area which would deliver maybe 300 to 400 homes. So there's a number of schemes coming forward which we feel shows that the market is improving, but it hasn't yet improved, and we are working with the RPs, etc., to bring them forward. So yes, there are some changes coming forward. The viability is reduced, and there's other planning changes that we're making sure that we've put our sort of view to government, and we're just waiting for them to now come back and tell us what they've decided to do moving forward.
Adam?
Yeah, I'll just come in there if I may, just to reiterate really that we've been deliberately cautious in our assumptions that underpin both the HRA business plan and the viability of each of these schemes. The assumptions underpinning all of the viability models are based on current construction costs, pretty conservative grant assumptions, policy compliant planning outcomes, and realistic delivery timeframes. And all the schemes are assessed against hurdles which, as I said, ensure the long-term sustainability of the HRA. That being said, it's a 10-year programme. We've fully recognised that viability, planning policy, the construction market can all change, and sometimes, as we've seen over the last couple of years, very quickly. So that's why the programme is structured to be flexible, and we're talking to the GLA about embedding inflation within our bid, and that's inflation of grant as well as some of those costs. So that means that we kind of aren't bidding on day one on the basis of grant that works today, but may well not in 5-10 years' time. So we're talking to the GLA about ways in which we can model that and bid on that basis. And schemes are not fixed in stone. Delivery routes can change if conditions worsen or improve, and all those assumptions are going to be kept under annual review as schemes progress, and more frequently if there are particular changes in either the schemes or the market. And all decisions will be kind of revisited through the governance process that we've set out rather than pushed through regardless.
Thank you. Mr. Wilding, I suspect this all touches quite significantly on the work that you're doing. I wonder if you have any thoughts that it might be useful to share at this point with regards to what you've just heard.
Yeah, I think as a developer, we support the design guide that's come forward, and it's an interesting one around listen to the market discussions. And there's a piece in the Financial Times this week, I don't know whether anyone saw it, but London as housing market, if you look at the period between 2017 and this year, there's been actually a net reduction in sales prices across the capital. The whole of the rest of the country is at varying levels has shown price growth over that time, but what we have had is huge amount of headwinds in that same period. Construction costs have increased probably around about 50%. So scheme viability has been hugely challenging. But you know, it needs an optimism in the market, and people buying homes comes off feeling confident to buy a home, and that hasn't been there in the period. But you know, we foresee that is starting to improve. You know, with interest rates have started to drop, mortgage availability is starting to come back. You're starting to see 95% mortgages back available, and you know, but that will take time to move the dial and for the market to come back. It's interesting hearing Councillor Mamro say about major planning applications, but you know, it's shocking to hear that no major applications in 2024. Ourselves will be bringing forward 2 applications within the borough through the course this year, including Gurnell, but Acton Gardens as well, where we've delivered, you know, over 2,000 homes over the last 15 years. But we'll be bringing forward the next planning application on there. So, you know, hopefully that gives a glimpse of from a developer and a, you know, a local employer. We're only over the road, but very supportive of the borough's ambition to deliver homes and affordable homes as well.
Thank you, and welcome that, and indeed celebrate your support for the borough. Councillor Dintzer.
I wasn't expecting you to come to me. I thought the camera raised her hand before me. There are very many good points in this report, in the proposal. I think building more affordable homes that local people can actually afford. So on that, my question is, how will you make sure the homes being built are the ones which local people actually need, like the family homes, like accessible homes, or not just building what is easier to build? And the other 2 questions are, you know, as it is such a massive proposal, what are the funding risks? If we get less money from the GLA, how many homes will we lose as a result? And also our ability to deliver. Have we got the skill set and the staff who can see these through?
I suspect Councillor Mamro to start, and maybe some others will jump in.
So we have actually, through the process that we've been working with all the different teams, housing, social, adult care, adult social services, children's services, we have now moved towards a clear understanding of what type of accommodation is required for all the people in the borough. So Lexton, for instance, in Acton, is for elderly sort of residents who need that kind of accommodation. We're looking at children's homes, etc. So we have now got getting a unified picture of what is required. And yes, I think our teams are now at a level, because what we're saying is that the council will not be the only delivery mechanism. We're saying we're part of the picture, but we need partners. So, I mean, Countryside are there. They're a key partner for us. We've got Berkeley Homes. We've got other sort of developers that we work with. Hills, they're delivering in the Golf Links estate. I mean, we went and visited 143 homes being built to passive home standards. So their the energy bills were very, very low. So that development guide is actually a living document. People are following it and are actually delivering on that. So Barrett's have indicated that they will deliver in Acton all of their homes at passive home standard. So yes, we are building, and I understand that there is a need for family homes, but we've seen the numbers. There's a need for every type of home. So 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom. So the need is enormous. Whatever you build, you could fill it 10 times over, because our housing waiting list, as you know and are aware, at one point was over 20,000. And we used to have 4 bands, A, B, C, and D. And we did move towards not having a band D, because the residents on that housing sort of band would have never received a home in about 30 years. So it's very unfair for us to say to them that they were on a waiting list, which would never come to them. So we've got only A, B, and C, which is why the housing waiting list is reduced. But there is a massive need for homes in the borough. And whatever we can build, as long as it's sustainable, i.e. social rent or London living rent, we have residents that can fill them. And therefore, it really is, what we just need to build all types of homes, but whatever we can get through the system in a sense of being viable and being able to actually manage to build them, we will have residents on our housing waiting list that can move in tomorrow. So there's no lack of demand, it's a lack of supply, and we're trying to increase the supply.
Thank you. Adam?
If I may, I'll just come in on the last part of that question, which is around resourcing and if we'd got the skills and people in-house to be able to deliver on this. And what I'll point out is that there is a stage 3 to the Affordable Homes Investment Plan, which is currently underway and will continue in earnest once the GLA bid is in March. And that really is about turning the mirror on ourselves and identifying any gaps in skills, resource, making sure that we've got the governance processes and the financial processes all set up and in place on the basis of delivering what's set out in both the bid and the Affordable Homes Investment Plan.
Councillor Brett?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back in terms of the understanding of our needs. I mean, it was safe to say that maybe a year and a half ago we had less of an understanding than we do now. There's been a tremendous amount of work in terms of not just in terms of the regen team working really closely with colleagues in the housing team to fully understand all of our data and to know exactly what our needs are, so that when we're commissioning, we're getting what we actually need within the borough. And then just to say that I chair a monthly, sometimes bi-weekly meeting with the strategic directors, both Peter George, Nikki Fiedler, and also Emily, who is our finance lead, as well as the cabinet members and any of the acting directors. And though that meeting is all about our housing supply, we talk about what our data is, and we talk about our financial modelling, and that's where we we're aligned in terms of that, and we also hold each of the areas to account to make sure that there's a robustness and they're working really closely together. So I just want to give that reassurance.
Mr. Wilding, I wonder, in terms of particularly, I think, skills, do you find that you have access to the skills you need in borough? I'm sure you take from other boroughs too to bring people into Ealing, but
yeah, I think as an industry, it's a huge challenge, and again through sort of the downturn in the construction market, we've lost a lot of people out of the industry. So we put a lot of work into apprenticeship schemes. So we construction skills academies, and within our scheme, so we have like a RISE program, we call it, so we take on school leavers, but we've also got like a graduate scheme, etc. But attracting new people into the industry is hugely important. So in June, I think it's June 24th this year at Acton Gardens, we're doing a construction skills event. So we're partnering with a local school to get 50 to 60 students come along, and on the day they'll get to try different trades. They can have a go at bricklaying, plumbing, but we also have like our architects there as well to demonstrate 3D design software, that type of thing. I think one of the challenges we see, particularly like in schools career advice, people have a very tight of someone working in construction, is laying bricks, etc. But just if you go over the road in our head office, you've got finance, you've got IT, you've got sales and marketing, you've got literally everything in the industry. So we do a lot around education piece, outreach projects into schools to try and, show people all the different types of career paths you can take in the industry. So it's really important that we do that and give back and try and attract people into it. So
fantastic, thank you very much, because I know that a lot of what we've looked at here is reducing pressure on demand-led services, and obviously good well-paying jobs in the borough is a great way to do that. I think Councillor Brett wanted to add something.
Yeah, no, it was just in terms of the jobs and apprenticeship side of things. So when we're working with large developers like yourself, there is a requirement that there are apprenticeships and jobs for local people, but not only that, in terms of the kind of the skills and adult learning side of things as well. And I know that my colleague Councillor Nagpal will attest to that if she was here, that there's a lot of work that is going on in terms of addressing and looking at where the skills are, and working with the higher education and schools to make sure that there are those pathways for people to go in. Not pathway to university is not for everybody, and there are lots of other ways to get into work, and those are the kind of opportunities that we're working with various industries, including the developer industry, the building industry, to make sure that those jobs are available for our residents and young people, but so that they've got the skills they have to then earn a decent wage.
Thank you, Councillor Nagpal.
Thank you, Chair. So with key data sets like stock condition and net present value still outstanding, can you tell me how the council can ensure the robustness of the Affordable Homes Investment Plan before using it to inform the local authority housing programme bid? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we're being honest about what we know now, and we've designed the programme to cope with what we don't yet know. The new London Social and Affordable Homes programme is a 10-year programme, and one of its strengths is flexibility. The GLA expects pipelines to evolve over time, and they're not expecting everything to be fixed on day one. And I think I keep saying that and reiterating it. It's a good thing, and we've designed accordingly. In parallel, our housing development and housing asset management teams are continuing to work closely together to complete the remaining data sets, particularly around stock condition and net present values. And the large piece that's outstanding is around our high risk buildings. Those data sets are critical, especially for estate sites, and they will directly inform which sites we prioritise, which we hold back, which delivery routes we use. But they largely feature in what I described, if you recall, as the indicative allocation, which is the more flexible part of the bid. So we're ready to adapt. And the key point is, the Affordable Homes Investment Plan is not a static document. We've kind of shared with you a draft. It is a framework that will be refined as better data becomes available, and the LSAP allows for that refinement over the life of the programme.
Mr. Wilding, I think there's over the last few years, there have been a number of challenges when it comes to delivering housing at prices that have maybe been agreed a period of time ago. What sort of risk do you see to current projects? How internally are you managing that risk, and how much volatility in the market can you withstand?
Very good question. So I think what we see certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, there's been a lot more stability in construction costs. I think the times you kind of infer to, there was a period of hyper cost inflation, and really it's a perfect storm of post-Brexit, war in Ukraine, particularly things like steelwork prices. When there was the war started, Mariupol was a big steel supplier to construction industry across Europe, and that had impact on costs, sort of availability of supply materials, etc. So current market is quite stable, and I think what we see is because that's competitive and supply chain are competing for work because it's very, very low. What I would say risks as you look forward would be, you know, if all of a sudden, you know, the economy shot off and suddenly there was a big uptick in the amount of construction activity, construction costs in that period can rise as a result of that, but that would naturally come off the back of the economy improving. So what do we do as a business? Obviously we're in a fortunate position where we're, you know, one of the largest house builders in the UK. So we work with our supply chain. So we do long-term supply agreements with our supply chain. So for example, if you take a kitchen supplier, so Symphony Kitchens, so we build anywhere around about 17,000 homes a year across the UK. Symphony supply about 12,000 kitchens a year to us. So they have a long-term supply. They know they're going to get a steady supply of work, and therefore we get very competitive rates. So we can buy at a very, very good rate. So I'm just using them as an example, but apply that right across the board. So I think through providing continuity of work, that enables us to buy at a better rate from most house builders. In the London market, we built around about 2,000. We built 2,000 homes across London last year. So that applies with our supply chain. We're loyal to our supply chain. We give them visibility of pipeline. We've got a very good land bank supply, so people can see that there's going to be a steady supply of work. So that's how we remain competitive, basically.
Fantastic, thank you very much. I've got Councillor Crawford, who's had his hand up for a while. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Sorry, it keeps going in and out. And I really lovely you're pointing at me. I think you're giving me a thumbs up rather than giving another gesture. I can't quite see from my vantage point. I'm sorry, but just my question's actually been answered by the panelists already. So I was going to come on the back of your one and ask Jamie. The Curry and Brown report this morning says that the construction costs in the UK will rise by about 3.6% over the forthcoming year. That's more than a percentage point higher than global. It also says that the budget didn't really do enough for construction. So in two areas, one, it seems like, would it be fair to say from your answer previously that you're confident that you can weather the uncertainty and the volatility? And the second part is not a question, it's just to commend you in terms of the work that you're doing, and you referenced for apprenticeships and careers in the building trade. I wondered if there might be some scope for students at one of the sister schools to Twyford, which is Ada Lovelace, where they're currently bedding in their T levels at the moment, and contrasting the excellent approach that you seem to be taking with the disappointment as a ward councillor, and I don't expect you to comment clearly, that I have, that some projects like HS2 and the Elizabeth line have consistently failed to deliver for my constituents looking to enter the building market and the construction industry in Acton. Just so if you could just refresh on how confident you are, and it seems like you are based on what you've just said, in regard to meeting those targets. It looks like we've got a very good partner for Gurnell, from my vantage point, Chair.
Yeah, okay. I mean, them sorts of, you know, there's always a lot in statistics, isn't it? But I imagine that's, you know, construction will pull in lots of different elements of it. So I'm only speaking on behalf of house building.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's certainly our experience. I mean, you know, given the amount of homes we're building across London, we're placing subcontract orders all the time. So we're currently procuring subcontractors for the next phase at Acton Gardens at the moment, and it is very stable is what we see. Naturally there is, you know, year on year slight increases in cost, but we're trying to manage that as best we can at the moment. But yeah, I mean, we're hugely excited about Gurnell Leisure Centre, and I won't go into all of it now, but we've provided a lot of commitments in our social value strategy. There is some stuff around there about T-level students. So I'll certainly take up the mantle on Ada Lovelace to get in touch with them. Yeah, we'd be delighted to.
There's a
Thanks very
teacher called it's a teacher called Mrs. Roberts. There's a familial link with one of the teachers at Twyford who taught me. She's been selected to do this work. So if I could put you in touch via the chair, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Councillor Gallant?
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a question. Jamie, you're so open that I'm going to ask you a very difficult question. You're confident, but what actually keeps you up at night? What looking into the future, crystal ball, what keeps you up at night? I hope you're not going to have to provide a third elevator, for example, which is something that came out of the blue due to a disaster. And those are the kind of things that can really change the whole thing for you. So just tell us that.
I think we see so much change. It's as an industry. I think one of the contributing factors to rising construction costs is when the rules keep on changing. So I think at the moment it has been building safety regulator that has stabilised. And we've got our first Gateway 2 approvals in. One of them was on Acton Gardens. Well, there was actually 2 consents there, but the industry has adapted to that, and you get a new set of rules, and you just need it to settle down. With the what's on our we've got new heat network regulations are coming into play, or come into play at the end of January. So again, it's a new thing for the industry to absorb and understand. So that regulation change is probably one of the biggest things that would keep me up at night at the moment.
So we have to make recommendations at the end of this, and so what can the council do? What can council do to help you weather that?
It's another good question. I think, and Yemi and I actually talked to us. We had a walk around Acton Gardens today, and I think in a tough market, what you do see is high degree of collaboration, and I think there's a definite spirit of actually it is a big thing to trust the developer, isn't it? But actually working in partnership together, there's a common goal to deliver housing. Absolutely, there's acute need for housing and high quality housing, and picking up the comments earlier about building the right housing and family housing. We have to work together to deliver that, and I think that has to come through a spirit of openness and collaboration, and understand each other's drivers, what we're trying to do. So that would be the key thing for me, I think.
Councillor Edpole?
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarity, are you taking questions on the development guide as well now?
Wait, taking question with that.
Oh, okay, fine. So a question for you first, Mr. Wilding. Have you ever had a supplier default on a long-term supply agreement? And if so, how have you dealt with that?
We've recently, outside of London, on a scheme, so we have subcontractors go bust in the current market quite a lot. So the key is to deal with it swiftly. So very recently we had a bricklaying contractor unfortunately go into administration, and but go back to we have a very strong supply chain, so you've got to not procrastinate and deal with it very, very quickly. But we had a new bricklaying contractor on site within 3 weeks, and to react to that. So being let down on material supply of another project we had, stonework manufacturer not performing, but you've got to make swift decisions and move on. So it's a sign of the times, unfortunately, isn't it? But
Thank you. And just one on the development guide, please, for Yemi. So how does the guide ensure compliance with AWAB's law and the Building Safety Act? And what checks ensure that the issue is addressed at the design stage rather than during construction or occupation?
I think so given that those acts are now in place, it's really about us being proactive. So that's what we've tried to do with the guide, not only as a kind of the client, but actually those that will own the properties after. And I think we're clear that right from the outset, as we're designing the properties, we need to take all those fabric first considerations into plans into consideration rather than retrospectively. So the guide also operationalizes the Building Safety Act as well, embedding the golden thread of information, so quality assurance all the way through, and it really does it forms part of the wider council-wide approach to building safety. So we've made sure that there are links there and what we are doing. I think it's really important. What we're trying to do is go above when we talk about risks and what keeps us awake at night, not just doing the basic now, but looking at future and kind of future proofing our stock. So that's the way we've kind of taken the approach to how we deal with those things, because building safety, there are murmurings that we're going to start talking about 11 meters rather than 18. So those are the kind of things that keep us up at night. But I think we risk profile a lot of things and then look at how we might be able to mitigate those coming forwards. And with the guide, we've spent lots of time as well talking to colleagues in the wider housing team and taking learnings from them and understanding the pressures under, and it's the feedback loop right back to, you know, those on the ground that are dealing with the existing homes. How do we make sure when we're building new, we take into consideration kind of the reports that are coming out with what colleagues are dealing with on the ground with maintaining the existing stock.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dinser.
Yeah, have we moved on to the guide, or are we still? Sorry?
Everything is up for discussion.
Okay, in that case, I just wanted to go back to my question about family homes. I just want to understand what study, what consultation was done in Southall to understand the need for family homes, because for over last 10-20 years, I think there has been a huge demand for family homes which are unavailable. So I just want to understand, did we do any consultation, any study to understand the demand for family homes? And then I'll come back to my question about development guide later on.
Councillor Manro.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what we mean by a family home. A 2-bedroom property can be suitable for a family if it's sited, it is correctly allocated. So, you know, husband and wife with 1 child can very easily have a 2-bedroom as a family home. This fundamental misconception where you think we've got to have a 3-bedroom, a 2-story building with a garden being labelled a family home. Well, it's really very difficult, because if you talk to Jamie and the developers, the costs of land is so high in London that if you were to try and build the standard sort of family homes that we've all got used to over the years, the costs are so high that nobody could actually afford to buy them or live in them, because that's the issue. So we have to balance the need for homes that all families can occupy and this fundamental misconception that the only thing that you can call a family home is, you know, a 2-up standard build with a garden at the back. Well, in London, that's not really what. Those become too expensive, and they are at a level of price where it's unaffordable for 95% of our population in the borough, at least, if not more. So it is an issue, and I think fundamentally, I also that sort of what is a family home, and this we get from many people. So that's the difference. A family home is if it's suitable for your family, whether you're, you know, a family with 2 children, 1 child, or you're just a couple. If it fits your profile and the room sizes, etc., meet that requirement, that's a family home. And if it's sustainable, that's even better. Chair, I just wanted to go back to the building safety. one of the unintended consequences that we've seen through the planning system is sites are not being maximised. Many schemes have come forward where they don't go higher than 18 metres. They stay below because they didn't want to go through the building safety regulatory process. So we have been talking to developers about saying, no, we're trying to make that system better, and been lobbying government to see, because we don't want sites to be underutilized in terms of people not wanting to go over like 5 or 6 stories maximum under 18 meters. So there are some unintended consequences of the Building Safety Act. So I just wanted to put that in, but family homes are homes that fit your family in terms of room size, etc.
Thank you. Is it on family homes or is it? Okay.
What I'm trying to say, I'm not against 2-bedroom homes. That's if the family wants that, say husband, wife, and 1 children, that's fine. But one of the findings of the COVID inquiry was that reason most of the Asian people suffered because there were 3 generations living in a family home. So there is a demand for family homes. That's the point I was making. If we are going to close our eyes to what the COVID inquiry has told us, then that's fine. I'm not disputing, I'm not saying the council is doing anything wrong. This is a wonderful project, and this will deliver affordable home, which is very good. But to wash away the concerns of many people who are for years wanting these bigger homes so they can live with their family, with their grandparents, with their grandchildren, is a real need. So I that's what I was trying to state. I'm not trying to say you are wrong or anything like that, or this plan is wrong. No. So misconception was used out of context in your case, Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Councillor Mohan.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about development guide. How will the guide's checklists and principles be embedded into gateway approvals, procurement, and project monitoring to ensure consistent application across all developments?
Yeah. So I think one of the big things is often that we set a lot of metrics, we give them to the developer, and we just expect that they'll be made. So, but what we are planning to do, and when the strength of this guide is then it's constant monitoring of them via the processes we have in place. And we're very used to when a project is on site, we have monthly development meetings where there are a whole list of things that we check being met. So that's one way. Also, right at the beginning, before we get to site, we're going to make sure that the guide is embedded as part of procurement when we go out to procure these projects. That this is going to be one of the major documents that we ask developers to respond to. Now, I think not every scheme is going to be able to meet all the objectives of the guide. There needs to be some flexibility in that. And I think it's also important to say that the guide is for council schemes that we can control on council land. There will be developers that come in and put in their own separate applications. So what we're also trying to do is make sure we get the support from our planning colleagues as well, so that whether it's our projects on council land or not on council land, that there is a confidence in what we're trying to achieve, and an understanding that actually the strategies that we're responding to fit all what the council is trying to achieve in the long term. So I think over on top of having the guide is how we monitor it monthly and consistently. And we do have, we're very used to that system of working within our projects. So, and I think it's also right to note that all procurement decisions in any case have to be formally approved by senior officers as well as the Joint Contracts Board. So we have the processes in place to make sure we're following through.
Councillor Gallant.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so I mean, if I could just talk about energy, overheating, carbon reduction, climate resilience. Are we going to set minimum standards? Are we going to set higher than minimum standards, which can move about according to case or and situation and particularities? And indeed, how we benchmark it, where we get these standards from?
Jamie, close your ears. So the guide, we're going for top of the class rather than just kind of the standard aspirations. And we were talking about this again this afternoon, asking him how he felt about the higher passive house standards that we were aspiring from. I think the big aim here is that we think that if we go for those higher energy standards, what it means is that the homes are going to be cheaper for our residents to run, and it will be more comfortable for them to live in. And then we're talking about future proofing as well. That's why we're going, the aspiration is to go beyond the basic standards that we have now. I think we're talking also about thinking about how we save the planet and kind of cutting carbon and future costs as well. So and I think one of the big things we are very mindful of as well is that you set targets, but again, going back to the last question, how do we monitor it? So even when the residents move in, the idea is that there will be post-occupancy surveys done to test, well, are they really saving the amounts of money that they thought they were going to save? How are they feeling environmentally and comfort-wise? And then again, feed that back as a feedback loop when we're designing at the beginning of the projects. Jamie, did you want to share your thoughts when we had the conversation this afternoon about the higher standards that we're aspiring for?
I think it's a few points for me to make on this, but setting the bar at passive house plus
Yeah.
is if you'd have been saying that 10 years ago, it would have been a huge leap for the industry. But actually, building regulations, and Part L of the building regulations is around conservation of fuel and power, has increased over the years. So our view, and what we were saying earlier, is it's not as big a leap as it was years ago. So it doesn't concern us. I think for me, setting a consistency of approach and over time, and Councillor Munro said around land values in London are very, very high. But if you've got a consistent approach to regulation, and that's what it is to develop in Ealing, over time the market will correct itself. And if there is a cost attributed to a certain design guide thing, when someone's buying a bit of land or going for planning permission in Ealing, that will naturally correct itself and the market will adjust. So and where I would go on to support it is, on affordable housing, fuel poverty is a huge issue, but it's exactly the same issue for private housing as well. And all of us, our utility bills have gone up hugely, haven't they, over the last few years? So actually, I would see passive houses as well as something that's great, and it's great for the planet, but it's actually marketable for the private market as well. So it's something we would support. So
fantastic. I wonder whether we have any resolutions that we would care to make. I see Councillor Munro has now raised his hand. Councillor Munro, you may give the members of the committee time to think about what resolutions they'd like to make while you make your point.
Okay. I would say to you, we've been working with energy suppliers, mainly Octopus and one or two others, to look at how we embed the warm homes program coming forward. The government's announced quite a large sum of money towards solar panels, batteries, heat pumps, and you may be aware that Octopus are saying if developers work with them, they can guarantee if they take forward their sort of solar panels and heat pumps, they would guarantee 10 years of zero bills for those homes and maybe longer. So we are now looking at doing a pilot scheme with them through our social housing and maybe private housing developers to see whether we can bring forward a scheme which tests that. So we are looking at how we actually make homes zero energy cost by using batteries, solar panels and heat pumps. And there may be a program coming forward to actually do that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mamre. Do we have resolutions then from the councillors? Councillor Crawford?
Rather than resolutions, do you mean recommendations, Chair? Because a resolution is something different. It means I can condemn Councillor Mamre for what he just said, when I want to actually endorse what he just said and say that the Octopus Energy Scheme would, what that he's talking about, community-owned energy, is something that various London councils have done over a period of time, and Councillor Mamre is, I won't say old enough, experienced enough like me to remember various councils tried this between 2010 and 2018 and it didn't quite work. But the schemes I'd like to recommend are the ones put forward by the Deputy Mayor, now the Deputy Mayor for London, Mette Coburn. He's run a series of community energy schemes, from very small ones in Haringey when they started to huge community energy where residents own their energy, and through solar panels they're invested in it. And I don't know if it's transferable quite to private providers, but the more people who sign up for such a scheme, the more dividend, more benefit there is. I can see it's very rare that Councillor Marrow nods at something I say, but there we go. Good at the video. I'm joking, obviously, but the point, the recommendation I would make is that could we, and I'm sure Councillor Marrow and Councillor Brett and the Cabinet have all met with Councillor, he was a councillor, sorry, the Deputy Mayor Coburn, and the GLA programme and the reports are very clear that this delivers real benefit. And so my recommendation would be that the scrutiny panel looks at or recommends to Cabinet that pursuing this approach would provide community energy at a cheaper rate, sustainable in the long term, not just for one part of one town in our 7 towns, but across our 7 towns. And if we can get developers to sign up in on it, then it's a real, it helps tackle the climate crisis as well as delivering lower energy bills, which would be great for all leading residents. Thank you.
Fantastic. So are we happy to agree a recommendation to explore the opportunities for community energy projects? Fantastic. Councillor Gallant?
Yes, I agree with that, to explore that. I'd recommend also that I think we've heard it, to work towards maintaining a very consistent approach to regulation across the borough. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think maybe a recommendation with regards to skills and supporting skills in the borough, continue the high level of skill support that Ealing Council currently maintaining a kind of a good standard of
Chair,
that.
could we formally, I'm being cheeky, could we formally commend the work of Jamie and his colleagues and talk about that Gurnell approach and ask that it's rolled out wider? Because I think, firstly, he's come to the committee this evening and spoken and talked about his ambition, and that should be matched. It should be something that's a top level. The delivery of it is something that, according to his answers, they're committed to in their CSR, and they have a track record across the country of doing this. We've selected a really good development partner for a reason, I think, at Gurnell. And, there's a link with Ada Lovelace, which is one of our local schools, doing those T levels, and that should be something that we should explore. But I'll leave it to the committee to decide whether they want to be that explicit. Thank you.
I'm minded to agree with you, but possibly demur from endorsing kind of a business from the committee.
Well, how about we say in a similar fashion to schemes already proposed by Ealing Council? I'll take your point, Chair.
I'm absolutely happy to endorse.
I just wanted to commend the work formally of,
and for us to, as a committee, recommend.
Other businesses are available, although use that one. Yeah.
Is the committee happy to recommend that sort of schemes with the same principles behind them are a good thing? I just want to avoid necessarily supporting the one specific business. I think I like everything we've heard. I sort of sticking on the side of caution with that rather than.
Why don't we just say liking the Gurnell scheme then, rather than
Yeah.
explicitly
Yeah.
mentioning the business? Everyone will
Yeah,
know
so
what we mean.
as Councillor Nagpal has said, endorsing the scheme that is attached to the Gurnell project explicitly. Yeah. Do we have other recommendations?
We have a very
I'm making a
obvious,
hat trick, Chair.
we have a
Sorry,
very
Rob.
obvious recommendation, Chair. As we've asked about the collaboration between developers and the council, what can the council do to help? The answer is maintain a two-way discussion at all times, listening in both directions. It's obvious, but it should perhaps be stated.
I suppose that would be a continue to deliver the fantastic collaboration that already exists. So as a support its continued delivery. Yeah. So maybe a broader recommendation around continued compliance with the building safety regulator, ensuring that our guidance is not contradictory to create a non-difficult development sort of. I think that might suffice. I'm seeing nods of agreement. Fantastic. I would, in that case, particularly like to thank our witnesses today for their excellent contributions. Very, very grateful for the amount of time you've taken out of your evening to come and support us. And of course, to our cabinet members that have kindly given their time to offer up their thoughts for this scrutiny panel. Councillor Mohan. That's very kind of you. Thank you. I was just going to say a few words in similar, though I wasn't going to thank myself, but thank you very much. I wanted to thank all of the, you'll give me a minute or two, just thank all of the members of the panel for all of their fantastic work over the year. It's been fantastic to work with you, and I'm very grateful for your time and your support. Of course, to all of the officers that have been and sort of given evidence to the scrutiny committee. We're very grateful. I know it's a lot of prep work to prepare everything, and it makes it an awful lot smoother. So thank you so much. Of course, to all of our witnesses, they've been fantastic, and particularly to Makisha for her fantastic work supporting our scrutiny panel over the last year. We've looked at a lot of different things. I think economy and sustainability are absolutely two of the most important topics we could be looking at as a council. That is the wealth and well-being of our citizens, but also that we are protecting the very clearly fragile world that Ealing is absolutely part of. We've looked at the community infrastructure levy and the local plan. That's how we develop the area and how we fund it. We've talked about job creation, particularly for some of our less well-off residents and for our youngest residents. We've looked at how we make our economy more healthy, more sustainable, and how we make the places, the 7 towns that make up Ealing, a fundamentally stronger part of our borough. But we've also looked at how Ealing is setting an agenda, how the Ealing borough is in many ways leading the city and therefore the country in not just responding to problems as they arise, but actually preventing them and anticipating them. We've also looked at the fantastic wealth of talent we have in this borough with our young people, with their skills, their ability, but also the creative industries and cultural industries. And we've touched on that a number of times. So I'm very pleased we've been able to not just restrict the economy to something mercenary. We've been able to talk about the value of the cultural heritage we have as a borough. And we've also made, I think, some important recommendations around not just measuring input, but what we actually achieve as a council, because it's incredibly important that while we do good work, the good work actually results in something positive. And we've seen examples of that today with the incredible results with the HRA and how that's changed in recent years. And indeed, I think we should celebrate the council's very positive direction of travel in terms of results from housing regulators. And I know Councillor Brett is very keen to discuss that at any opportunity. I think we've looked to the future for Ealing and we celebrate it as a very successful borough. So thank you very much for your contributions to that. It's been a very pleasant civic year, and I hope that we will all continue to meet after the election as well. So thank you very much.